Hello beauties, and welcome back to the Bumpy Bones Lock Sport channel. Now in today's video I'm going to be kind of talking about the ABUS 8345 Series 2 padlocks. And I'm also going to walk you through how you can repin these and repin a lock in general. I'm going to try to take a general approach to repinning the locks for these. And one reason why I want to do that is the cylinders that are in these locks are really cool and show you like the main ways that you can go through and repin any lock, any pin cylinder lock, I should say. So let's start by talking about this particular padlock. So I got these off of Amazon, and they're about $40 on Amazon. And what I really love about them is you'll see I have three different locks here, and one's Yale, one's Quickset, the other is Schlage. And I'm probably pronouncing that name wrong. But what's really cool about this is these all have interchangeable cores. And so you can get the 6CA in a whole bunch of different keyways like Arrow, Corbin. I've seen a whole bunch of other lock keyways that are available for this particular model. And so I can actually take this core and replace it with any of these other padlocks, or just go out and buy a core and put it in any of these padlocks. So that's really cool. The other really nice thing about this lock is that you can repin them, and it's a standard key size. And so the Yale uses Y1 and Y2 keyways, and the difference is Y1's a 5 pin and then Y2 is 6 pins. Quickset uses KW1, KW5, again 5 pin versus 6 pin, and the same with Schlage, which is SC1 and SC4. And so what is possible is, say, I have this on my shed and I want to have this kind of as my general key that gets me in and out of my house and all of that. So I got my Yale key here, so I can open up this padlock. And then I can also go to this other Yale lock that I actually just got, and I can also use the same key on this lock here. And this is like a lock that I would have on like a storm door or something like that. So you can repin these with standard keys, which is really cool. The other really nice thing about these padlocks is you can change them between being key retention and non-key retention. So you can see I've got these here so I can unlock the padlock and pull the key out. And so I can actually change this by moving a very small piece in here and make that key retaining. And I'll show you how you do that. So let's talk in general about how a pin cylinder works here. And I got a really nice cutaway here. And so the way that the pin cylinders work is you've got a couple of main components. You got your key pins, and those are the pins that go right up against the key. Then you have your driver pins or your security pins. And these pins can be spool, serrated, standard like what's in this lock here, or you can get novelty like the Sparrow check pins and munition pins and all that fun stuff. But those are what kind of make it a little bit harder to pick, especially when you have the serrated or the spool pins in there, because that's what gives the lock the character. And then you got your springs and all that. So if I go through and insert my key here, let me get that back into focus, you can see all the pins rise. Now this is the wrong key for this lock, but if it was the right key, all the lines in between the key pin and the driver pins would line up at a shear line, and then I would be able to turn the key. Because this is not the key, you can see all the lines are different. And so I can't turn the key because those pins are what physically holds the cylinder in place. All right, so let's talk about the tools that you need in order to repin a lock. And so I got most of my tools here. And so of course, the first thing you'll need is a screwdriver or an Allen wrench. And that's so that you can actually get the cylinder out of these locks. Not all padlocks are repinable. If you have like a master lock 1, 3, or 5, or like say this ABUS 7540 here, or like the other solid brass bodies, you can't repin these locks. But if you have the ones that you can pull the core out on, you can easily repin them and all that. And so you need these in order to get it out. The other thing I highly recommend is getting a good key gauge. Now, I like this Labs one here, but does not have Yale. It's got some of the other main ones like Westlock, Master, Weiser, Schlage, and Quickset. This is the one that I will use in the video because I'm going to repin my Quickset here, but you can get some that have more on it. This is CLK Supplies, which is a good one. I like Lab. Lab, I think, is a little bit better. So I'm going to use that one. The other thing that you're going to want is to have a couple of pinning tweezers, and these will help hold the pins while you are putting them in the cylinder, or just even working with them in general. So I actually have one here from Covert Instruments. I like this one, but I love the Sparrows. I think this is their 99mm pinning tweezers. So I highly recommend these. These are my go-to ones. The other thing that I highly recommend is getting something that will help you remove the C-clips on padlocks, and this is the gut wrench from Sparrows. And this comes in handy, and I'll show you how you use it because I got to use that on this guy here. And I'll talk about what those retaining clips are and how they work and all that. The other thing that you're going to want is a plug follower. Now, you can get them in different materials. You can actually make them yourself. So I'm going to be using the Covert Instruments Easy Loader. I love this, especially when it comes to a standard keyway like this. If I'm working with Master Lock or American Lock or Padlock, I'll actually use this wooden dowel that I made into a plug follower. But you can get, like, here's a Sparrows plug follower, and then here's one I got off Amazon. It's aluminum. You can make them out of a bunch of different material, or get them in different materials. And then what you're going to want is you're going to want a pinning mat. So I've got my Sparrows pinning mat here, but you can also, like, Covert Instruments has this really nice small one. Labs has a nice wood block that you can get. So I'll use this sometimes in my videos, especially when I want to hold things close to the camera. And Sparrows does have a smaller pad. I've got it glued into this nice little wooden block that I got off of Etsy and all that. So you got several different options with pinning mats. Now, if you don't have a pinning mat, what you can do is you can get, like, corrugated cardboard, the cardboard that's got, like, the grooves in it, and use that. But I recommend, if you're getting into lock sport, get a pinning mat because these things are awesome. And then I also recommend a plug holder. And this comes in really handy, especially when you're repinning a lock, because you can make sure that your pins are at your shear line. And I'll show this in just a moment here. You can do it visually, but this just makes it a lot easier to see. And then the most important part or piece that you need, or items that you need when you're repinning a lock, are the key pins. And so I ordered all of mine off of Amazon. And what I do is I put them in these jewelry organizers I found. And these are really nice because I can actually just remove them and put them down and move them around. Now, you can get kits that have their own organizer. And so, for example, here's a Labs kit that I just got for Yale. And so you can see I got all the key pins here, driver pins. We got some master pins here, and it's in a nice labeled organizer. These can be a bit pricey, especially if you're trying to get one that goes through all the different key pins. So I kind of get them as I need them, because I'm just in this as a hobby. You're going to want key pins. And then the other thing that you want are driver pins. And so these are, or security pins. And so this is a kit that I got off of Amazon. Had some really nice spool serrated pins in there. And you can also get them from, like, say, Sparrows. I've got their bulk pins. And then I got some of their novelty pins with, like, their check pins, munition, Scrooge. And so definitely having extra or additional security pins makes it a lot easier, or kind of nice, because then you can take any of these locks and you can make it challenging and all that. So those are the main tools that you'll want when you're repinning a lock. And so let's actually take a look at the cylinder on this, and let's talk about how you repin a lock. So I'm going to go ahead and take these other locks. I'm just going to put them off to the side here. And let me put that up there. So I've got the key unlocked, or the pad unlocked, and in most padlocks that you can rekey, there is a retaining screw in the hole here where the shackle goes. And so this one's a Phillips head. Sometimes they're an Allen wrench, so that's why you want to have the different screws or Allen wrenches, or screwdrivers and Allen wrenches available. So I'm just going to unscrew that and remove that screw. Come on. There we go. Now, one thing that I will say about this padlock that you want to be careful of is, and I'll show it at the end because it makes it a little bit easier because I just removed the screw, but if you overturn the key, you can actually remove the shackle on this. So I did want to give that little disclaimer on these here that you do want to be a little careful with that. All right, so now we can remove the cylinder. So you can see, I'm going to try doing this off to the side, that now pulls out. Now I want to see if I can remove this carefully. It stayed in there. All right. So there's this little piece in this padlock here. So this little Z bar here. So this Z bar is what tells you, or tells the lock, if you want it to be key retaining or non-key retaining. So if you see that little black dot there, so if that little black dot is face up on the cylinder here and going right up along the locking mechanism, then it's going to be a key retaining lock. But if I flip this over so that that black dot is face down, which can be a bit of a fun challenge. Come on. There we go. Now it's not going to retain the key. And so I'm going to put that back in so that that's not key retaining. So I'm just going to throw that over there. All right, so let's take a look at the cylinder here. So this cylinder is held in place by a retaining clip, so that's where my gut wrench is coming. But not all cylinders are held in by a retaining clip. The retaining mechanism of the plug can vary from lock to lock. Now this lock here also has some additional components to it because part of the locking mechanism is in the cylinder. But not all locks are like that. So like if I take a look at a quickset door deadlock here, you can see this is just a standard retaining clip here. So I pull this out, enter the key, and I can pull the cylinder out. You know, some mortisons, or most mortisons, have a retaining plate on the back, so you actually have to have a small Phillips head to remove the retaining screws, and then you can remove the retaining plate and then pull that out. There are others that have a retaining cap on them, and so there's this little pin here that you have to push down. Then you can unscrew the cap, and then you can remove the cylinder. Now, for other padlocks, like this is a master lock, an American lock, and I think ABUS, yeah, ABUS has them. The have the retaining C clip, so you pop that off, then you can pull the cylinder out. I didn't pull it apart, but like if I have another video where I got my Padlock 98 Pro here. These are a bit different because I think they have a C clip, but the locking mechanism is actually a part of the plug. So these are a bit different as well. But really, when it comes to pin cylinder locks, that's the big difference between them. And so once you figure out how to undo the retaining mechanism of the cylinder, then all the step of repinning them is the same. Now, I am not going to be covering this type of lock. This is a Euro cylinder lock. These you have to repin differently because you can't. When I go to pull the plug out of this, I'm going to use my fowler here to keep all the security and the driver pins up in the Bible here. I can't do that with the Euro cylinder. You have to go what's called front loading on here, so you go in through the front. So there's actually special tools that you need to do that. I don't have them, so I'm not going to cover how to do this yet, but I'm hoping to at some point be able to do that. All right, so let's go ahead and take the retaining clip off and get this open and see what's inside of it. Now, when you're taking the retaining clip off, you do want to be a little careful especially when you're dealing with these C clips or these E clips, because if they're really tight, what will happen is when you push it off, the laws of physics take over, and it's going to go ping, and if it goes ping, it opens the gate to oblivion, and you will never, ever, ever, ever find this. And some of these are really hard to find replacements of. So you do want to be really careful when you're removing those clips there. So as I said before, with this lock, it does have this additional piece here that goes in for the locking mechanism. Again, as you can see, not all locks have that. And now we're ready. Now another difference to this padlock is it does have this button here. And what's really nice about that button is that it does only allow you to turn the key a certain distance. It won't allow a full 360. But with this lock, it is a little bit of a pain in the butt because you do have to push that in when you're removing the core and all that. But let's talk about this core here real quick. So you'll notice that there is this hole here, and this is for the 6th pin. So if I wanted to, I can, without pulling the cylinder apart, without doing any of the stuff that I just did, I can just pull the cylinder out. I can take my key pen, I can drop that, and let me actually use my pinning tweezers here, because that's why pinning tweezers are nice, to prevent that from going flying off like that did. And then I can put in my driver pin, and then it comes with extra parts here, so I can take my spring, I can drop my spring in, and then there are these little metal plates here, and so you can slide in that metal plate into the cap here while pushing the spring down. It's a little bit tricky to do that, but once you get that plate in place, you now have a 6-pin lock. And so it's really nice in terms of you don't have to fully pull the lock apart in order to make it a 6-pin lock. All right, so let me put that there. And let's go ahead and talk about how we can repin this lock. Now, there are a couple of different ways that we can do it. And so let me actually put the retaining clip back on, because I want to show the 2 ways that you can do it without removing the retaining clip. All right, good enough. So actually, no, let me get that on there. This is the one thing about this lock that is a bit of a pain in the butt. The retaining clip has to go on in a particular location. On some locks, like the master lock here, this has a free, where you can do it. It doesn't really matter where you put it. Same thing with like the American lock cylinder. So sometimes you do have these clips that you do have to put in a very particular location. So how can I repin this without pulling the cylinder out? Well, with this lock, there are 2 different ways you can do it. If I put the key in, and if I push this button in and rotate it counterclockwise, I have this window here. And so what I can do is I can rotate to that window, and I can dump the keys, I can pull them out and repin it this way and not even touch the security pin. So this is the way that most locksmiths would repin a key like this, just because if you're doing this just for regular general use, you're not going to touch the security pins, so there's no need to pull the whole cylinder out. So this makes it a really nice and easy way of being able to repin the lock. The other thing I can do is go 180 degrees, and there are these holes that are on the bottom, and it's that same concept. I can drop the pins here and then put in the new pins and rekey it without, again, taking the cylinder apart. And so what is kind of nice about this is it shows different ways you can do it, because if you look at like the American lock, you do have the holes on the bottom. And I think American lock and master lock has that. I'm not sure which other one padlocks have it, but this is a common feature that you'll see in all padlocks, is that you can just turn that key 180 degrees and replace the pins and all that. Now you do want to be careful if this is in use. Most padlocks have a plate on them so that you can only rotate the key a certain distance. That's what this is for. This button is for, is to prevent me from being able to over rotate that and hit that 90-degree mark so it would drop, or the 180-degree mark so it would drop the pins. But that is something that you do want to be aware of when you are repinning, is not to over rotate the key so that it drops all the pins and all that. All right, so those are two easy ways that you can rekey a pen, rekey a lock. I'm sorry, but I want to do the security pins with this guy. So I'm going to take this retaining clip off again. Oh, it come off. There we go. And let's remove the cylinder. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert the key. All right. I'm going to rotate it to about maybe the 2 o'clock position. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to depress this button here. And again, if you're working with like like an American lock, a master lock, you don't have that button to press and you can just push it out. But I gotta push that button in order to push this one out. I'm not going to go far because what I now need to do is I now need to take my plug and I'm going to insert the plug so that it's kind of like in this direction. I want the lip here facing up because that's what's going to hold the security pins in the Bible. Now I'm replacing the security pin, so I could just kind of put my fingers over the hose and pull it out because, you know, but if you want to keep track of what security pin is where, that's where the plug follower comes in. So I'm going to go ahead and push this out. All right. So here's the cylinder. So as you can see, we've got our hose for our key pins. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drop my key pins over here. All right. And now I want to rekey this to a new key. And you may now be asking, wait, how do I know what pins to use here for the new key? So here's the new key that we're going to be using. So what number of pins do I use on here? Well, that's where your key gauge comes in. So what you're going to do with your key gauge is you're going to find the section that deals with the key that you're working with. So here's quick set. And you can see there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, here are the pins 1 through 6 here. So if I take my key and look at it, if I go from left to right, this is pin 5, pin 4, pin 3, pin 2, and pin 1. And the easy way that you can do that is if you line the key up with the cylinder, you can see where those pinholes are. And in general, the way that I always number the pins is I go with the keyway facing the right, so I can insert the key with my right hand side going left. And then going from left to right, I count down, so 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And that's the same way that I do it on the mat. And if you get like the Labs pinning block, you'll notice that that's the way that they count on the pad, on the pinning tray as well. There are some people who go the other way, but this is just the way that I think, so that's kind of the way that I would go about doing it. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert the key and go to that pin 5 and go down and push the key to the right until it won't go any further. So I can see pin 5 is 3, and then pin 4 is 1, pin 3 is 5, pin 4 is 5, and then pin 1 is 3, and I meant pin 2 is 5, and then pin 1 is 3. So I've already got the pins laid out here, but what you would do at that point, once you have the key numbers or the pin numbers for your key, you would go through and I would say, okay, so we've got in position 5, 3, and then we've got 5, and I would just put the pins in order there. All right, but I've already got my pins here, so let's go ahead and drop the key pins in place. So I'm going to put 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my key and I'm going to insert it to make sure that I pinned it right. Now I purposely grabbed the wrong key because I wanted to show what happens if you pin it wrong. So you can see I can't rotate this, and that's because I have one pin here that's too high. So either I grabbed the wrong key or I messed up on my pinning. So if I grab the right key here, I can see that I did something wrong still, because we've got that. So what did I do wrong? Let's see here. It looks like I got my pin for pin 1 messed up. Did I grab the right key? That's quick set number 2. So let's see here. Pin number 2 was supposed to be a 1. You know what? I think I miscounted that. Yeah. So that's actually, let's go back to our cylinder here. When I wrote it down wrong. So that's why it is really important to double check with this type of deal. So if I go back here, pin 4 is 1. So I messed that up. I'm going to make a correction in my journal here. All right. So that's why it's important to write down the pins and all that. I've got a database I have all my keys in, and I miswrote that. So that is actually a really good example. And so now if I go ahead and put this back in and I rotate it, I can now see all the key pins are now in alignment. And so that's why it's really important to check that, is because if you mess this up and you don't check it and you put it in the cylinder and you put the retaining clip on and you put the retaining screw back in and you close that shackle, you're not getting out unless if you either pick it, rake it, or bypass it, or find some other mechanism to open the lock and get that cylinder out. So just to kind of give you an FYI, this is something that I always double check and triple check before I put it back into the lock. All right, so now that we got our cylinder or our plug ready, let's go ahead and replace the security pins here. So let's see what we got in here, because I've changed this a few times and I can't remember what I have in here. All right, so it looks like I've got the original here. So this is the anti-bump pin. And so what's really cool about this pin is that if you notice in the ends here, they're kind of tapered, and you do have a couple of serration there. And so if you try to bump this key open, it's going to overset easily. And so it just adds in a little bit of a unknown factor when you're trying to bypass that. I'm going to put that there. Let's see what we got here. All right, so then we got spool pins for the rest of the way. Now this is what I like about the Easy Loader from Covert Instruments, is that it has a nice groove in the middle here, and these little bumps that they have in here fit right where you're putting in the plugs and all that. So it lines everything up really nicely. And I did remove some of the springs here. One thing that you'll notice with the springs is that they have a mind of their own and they like to do their own thing. It's always a good idea to have backup springs, and you can get some good ones through Sparrows. But you know, that's one of the other additional things I would highly recommend, is have extra springs, because if you mess up, and it's easy to shear these with your plug follower if you don't do things right. And so having extras is always a good idea. All right, so I'm going to put in this set of security pins. So I got 3 standard, 2 spool. So I already left the spring in number 5. And so we're going to go ahead and put this into number 4. All right, so now I need to drop a spring. And so when you're doing your loading of the security pins, there are a couple different ways you can do it. If you're dealing with like a 7-pin lock, sometimes it's easier to go from the back and go like, say, like with a 6-pin lock, 3, 5, 6, and then turn it around and then do or 4, 5, 6, and then do 3, 2, 1. Or you know, if you don't mind working deep and all that, you can just go from 6 or from like 6 to 1. But you want to work from one end to the other, because as you insert the pins, you push forward, and the plug, the follower is what holds the security pins in place. So you gotta kind of work that way. So let me do number 2. And then let's do number 1. Oop, and I almost made a mistake there. I forgot to put my spring back in. All right. So there we go. So we've got all of our security pins in. Let's go ahead and put the plug back in place. So I'm now going to take this, and I'm going to do the same thing that I did before, is have the plug at about at the 2 o'clock position, and I'm just going to push this back in place. And you do want to be careful with this, because if you rotate this, say this way, and you have this button facing up and it gets into one of those holes where your security pins go in the Bible, you're not going to get that this cylinder back out. So you do want to be very mindful of the cylinder that you're working with and its particular features and how you have it oriented. So for example, again, if I am going at 180 degrees, that's going to drop all of the pins here if I let go or as I go. So you do just want to kind of be mindful, especially with this lock, because you do have your window here in the, like the 10 o'clock position. So I don't want to put in the cylinder this way, because then that runs the risk of that button going up there or my pins dropping out. So I generally go with the 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock. It's the safer option for all the different locks. And then I'm just going to push the follower out with the cylinder. All right, and now what I'm going to do is grab my key again and test it. As I said before, I triple check, I quadruple check, and I just keep testing throughout the whole thing. So let's go ahead and put our retaining clip back in. So I want to put the locking mechanism back in place. Let's go ahead and put our retain clip back in place. This is the other reason why I like the spiral gutter, is that it does make it easier to get the retaining clip in place. All right, one more check. All right, so let's go ahead and put this back in place. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to put this Z-bar in place here. It goes right into this little groove here, and it's a bit of a pain to do. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to insert the cylinder in. Now, if you want this to be a key retaining lock, what you need to do is when you put that Z-bar in, it's a little bit of a trick, because you have to put your key in, you have to rotate it about to the 2 o'clock position, and then put the cylinder in. And that's because it's key retaining, so it needs that cylinder, the plug, to be rotated in order for it to go in place. But because I'm doing it where it's just not going to retain the key, I don't have to worry about that little tidbit. All right, so let's get this in place, and this is the fun part. I'm trying to do it so that you can see it be put in place here. Typically what I do is I just put my finger and do that, but so there we go. So I'm just going to slide this in place. We're flush, so that's good. Before I put our retaining screw in, what I'm going to do is lock it and test it, just to make sure that everything is working. Because again, once you put this retaining screw in and lock it, you're not going to get it unlocked if the key doesn't work. So let's do one test. All right, so there we go. Now, one thing that I did notice with this lock, and I'm actually re-recording this video. I had it already originally ready for publish, but there was a feature on it that I was running into problems with, and that was if you over rotate the key, it hit a point where I couldn't pull the key out. You know, it just was not coming out. And what was happening was that if you over rotate it, you'll see I'm trying to do it so it doesn't fully come out, and this is a bit of a hard grab, but there we go. You can see I can actually pull the shackle out. And so you want to be a little careful with this. If you do set to non-key retaining, is that if you over rotate, you can pop that shackle off, and it's easy to put back in place, but it's just one of those things that you want to keep in mind. Alright, so I hope everybody enjoyed this video. Do feel free to like and comment on the video. I do have a couple of more videos coming up that I have planned. I actually just got a new lockpick set from Lockwall Tools, and it's a set that I'm playing with right now and that I am falling in love with. So I'm going to be doing an accessibility review of that sometime soon. So stay tuned, please, and I hope everyone has a beautiful day.